Therefore, the purpose of the 4 applications of mindfulness is the purification, visuddhi, of beings from defilements and so forth. As the Buddha says, for a long time, this mind has been defiled by lust, hatred, and delusion. Through the defilements of the mind, beings are defiled. With the cleansing of the mind, beings are purified. Now we're going to see what are these 4 applications of mindfulness. One is it's called observation of the body. One has to apply mindfulness and observe the body. It's called kaya anupassana. Another is observation of feelings, called vedana anupassana. And another it is observation of thoughts, which is called citta anupassana. And another application is called observation of mental and material phenomena, which is called Dhamma anupassana. So therefore now, all this observation has to be done around us. So it has nothing to do with metaphysical teachings. We have to observe these things which are all the time around us, which are empirical, within our range of experience. So, and to see the nature of this phenomenon. So therefore now, it is regarding our body, our feelings, our mind, our mental and material phenomena. And the observation has to be done with mindfulness and awareness. So therefore now we have observation on the body, on the feeling, on the mind, and on the mental and material phenomena, and to see the, with the Vipassana eye, the rise and fall of this phenomena. Now, this rise and fall, it is the nature of this phenomena, which if one observes, it occurs every single moment. So therefore now, if you start this meditation, you have to start and observe what is more obvious to your experience. So in this case now, if the body is more obvious, now for example, the breath is more obvious or the movements of the body are more obvious, you can start observe the body. But if the feeling is more obvious, you can start observe the feeling. So because some people, they have different sensations in the body which are more prominent, more clear for them to start within the range of experience. They can start with feeling. If the mind is more obvious, they can start with the mind. So observing the mind, that means the thoughts. Because if people sit in meditation, they have so many things to think. The mind jumps from object to object and is so busy. So in that case now, they can start observing the mind because that is within the range of experience. And if the mental and material phenomena are more obvious, I can start observing this mental and material phenomena. So therefore now, regarding this observation of the body first, the Buddha explains how to observe the body. For those who can do that, it is within the range of experience, they can start doing with observation of the body. And then the Buddha says, here, one abides observing the body as a body, attuned, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. So now here there are the words the Buddha uses. Attuned means one should be energetic, not lethargic. Now the person who is sleepy and so forth, very lethargic, he can't observe. Therefore one should be attuned. You can choose a time when you are energetic to do this meditation. Fully aware and mindful, also without mindfulness, without remembering what one has to do, of course, one is not able to do the observation. Therefore, one should be fully aware and mindful regarding the object of meditation. So now we are going to see observation of the body. So, and the Buddha explains about mindfulness of breathing, which one can use it as serenity meditation, samatha meditation, but also mindfulness of breathing as insight Vipassana meditation. In this part, he is going to explain how to practice insight meditation in regard to the breathing. because breathing is very obvious, very prominent part of our body, because you can feel how our body all the time moves, inhales and exhales, inhales and exhales. This movement of the body, for some people, is very easy to grasp, to focus upon. So because it's very gross, it's a very gross object, and they can, if that is obvious for them, they can start observing the body with a breathing in, breathing out. Therefore, here we have, so in every in-breath, it's called for, if you observe the body, if you have, for every in-breath, you mentally note in-breath. For every out-breath, you mentally note out-breath. So this is the mentally noting. So in this way now, as called, if that the breath is more obvious, you can start understanding this breath is divided in two phases. So that is the in-breath and out-breath. Whenever you become aware, fully aware of the in-breath, you mentally note, means you tell inside you in-breath. And whenever you are aware of the out-breath, you tell inside you with some words, mentally note out-breath. You have to repeat these words again and again, so that in order to be fully aware. Otherwise, the mind does not know what to do. You have to remind the mind what one has to observe. So every in-breath, out-breath, you become fully aware, in-breath, out-breath, and you have to repeat this again and again, till the mind becomes familiar. Later, of course, you can skip these words, but in the beginning, we have to use these words in order to focus the mind and to become fully aware. So that is the first step, mindfulness awareness. But the Buddha does not stop there. Then he goes to tell the second step, what the meditator has to do. That is now the insight meditation. So that is the second part, and you must know what is called, one has to observe when one practice insight meditation. As we have mentioned, the main principle in Vipassana meditation is observation of rise and fall of every material and mental phenomenon. Therefore now, that is what the Buddha is going to explain now, how to observe this rise and fall in every phenomenon. We don't invent this phenomenon. It is present, only that we have to observe it, to see it, how all the impermanence of this material and mental phenomena. Therefore, the Buddha is going to say now how to, to practice Vipassana part. He says, one abides observing in the body its nature of rising, or its nature of falling, or its nature of both rising and falling. Here, what the Buddha explained is to see the rise and fall. So whenever you can see the rise in the body, you can mentally note rise. Whenever you can see the fall, you can see mentally note fall. Therefore, whenever you see both, you can both mentally note rise, fall. So therefore now, one has to start gradually doing this. So if one observes, for example, in the body, the in-breath, that is the rise. If one observes the out-breath, that is the fall. Because whatever we breathe inside, again, it goes out. Therefore, you have the rise and the fall. So now for those who know Pali, so they understand this is the text from the Pali words the Buddha uses. And so here we have samudaya means rise, dhamma is the nature, anupasi means observing, kaya is the body, viharati means abides, vaya means the fall, dhamma means the nature, and so forth. Samudaya, vaya, it is a rise and fall. So in the case of how, if one observes the breath, for example, by every in-breath, there is expansion. That is a rise. Our body rises with the expansion. By every out-breath, so there is contraction. That is a fall. Therefore, our body expands and contracts. This expansion and contraction is a rise and fall. This happens from the time we have been born till we are going to die. Our body all the time expands and contracts. So this we can call it rise and fall, because this rise and fall occurs also in our thoughts and our feelings. So in that case, we don't tell our thoughts expand and contract, but they rise and fall. Something similar happens also in our body. In this case now, we can see how it's called. For in-breath, you mentally note, as we have told, the first step is to mentally note what is the object of our observation is in-breath. Okay, you mentally note in-breath. So out-breath, it is the other it's called part, which is for the breath. So the first step is to mentally note in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath. So to become aware of the object and then go to the second step to see that in-breath is the rise, out-breath is the fall. So in this way, there is continuous rise and fall of in and out breaths. This is a kind of thing which the meditator is to see. That's called all the time these waves of rise and fall come up in the body. To see that this body is not a static. It's not like a stone, like a diamond, or like a steel, made of steel. It is made of substances all the time as the nature of rise and fall. So therefore now for the in-breath, you mentally note in-breath and rise. For the out-breath, you mentally note out-breath and fall. So you can do this for the in and out breath. So if you want to see, for example, in this case now, for example, you can see it in any part of the body which is more prominent. If the in-breath is prominent in the nose, you can observe it in the nose. So, but if it is prominent in on the chest or in the belly, you can go observe these parts of the body. But actually what you can see, whether it is on the nose, on the chest, or in the belly, so you can see the same thing. It is, you can see the rise and fall. That is a fundamental principle. So that is the important thing to see. And you have to continue doing so again and again, and insist, give more emphasis to the rise and fall. That's called only for the in-breath, out-breath, you can note 2, 3, 4 times. And after you have to continue observing all the time rise and fall, whether it's in the nose or the chest, on the belly. So, and then now, for example, in the nose, in breath, you mental note, and you can see rise. So out breath, you mental note, then you can see the fall. So then, but even with the in breath, you can see the rise and fall, especially in the nose. So if the in breath, the breath starts coming in, okay, that is the rise. So when it stops, that is the fall. Therefore, our in breath has a beginning and an end. So the beginning is the rise and the end is the fall. In the same way with out breath. Now out breath also has a beginning and an end. When the air comes outside of our body, that is the beginning. When it stops coming out of the body, it's the end. Therefore, it's called within the out breath, one can see the rise and fall. So that is, one can see it grossly, one can see it also in more minute way. So that every in-breath has rise and fall, and every out-breath has rise and fall. So therefore now you have to mentally note in-breath, so and see the rise and fall of the in-breath. Out-breath, mentally note, is called out-breath, and see the it's called that it also it's called rises and falls in many other ways. One example he gives, it is, we're going to give here at least, when we walk. Now, if we lift the leg, that is a lifting. Then we move it forward and then we place it down. Here we can see also that by lifting is the rise, moving forward, and after putting it down is the fall. Therefore now in this, and every step one can see there is a rise and fall. So in this case, one can note lifting, moving, and then placing. But one has to see that the rise and fall also, not the rise and fall, and keep emphasis on the rise and fall. So if one goes to in more details, one can see that by every small movement, there is a rise and fall. For example, heel up, lifting, moving, lowering, touching, placing. Then one can see the rise and fall in more minute way. So that is for advanced meditators, they can see more details. That is, rise and fall can happen in more minute way. So therefore now, the body, one can observe the postures. When sitting, for example, one can see that there is rise and fall while sitting. While standing, one can see there is rise and fall. While walking and while lying down. So in sitting, for example, there is rise and fall. Before, if we start sitting, that is the beginning. If we get up, that is actually the end. Therefore, in sitting also there is a start, that is a rise, and there is a fall also. If we change our position, that is the fall. If we lie down, that is the fall. So standing also, when we stand, we can't stand for a long time. There is a limit. So when we start standing, that is the rise. But when we stop standing because we got tired, that is the fall. So here also one can see the rise and fall when standing. While walking, the same. So every movement we do with the body, left leg, right leg, and so forth, moving back and forward, there is a rise and fall. That is how we move. And lying down the same, before we lie down, when we start lying down, that's the beginning of this movement. When we fall, that's called when we get up and so forth, that is the fall. There is also rise and fall here. In the same way, one can see, observe the body in other ways, the solidity element, the liquid element, the heat element, the wind element. Also in these elements, there is rise and fall. So one can observe the body in different aspects, but today, of course, we are not going to practice. It is not possible to practice all these things because most of these things are not so obvious for meditators. We are going to start observing only the breath, which is very easy for many people. So, but I just give you a picture how one can expand this Vipassana meditation in different aspects of our life. So then the Buddha says, by observing the body like that, mindfulness that there is the body is simply established in oneself to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and strong mindfulness. The meaning is there is only the body or a bodily process, not a being, not a person, not a woman, not a man, not a self, not what belongs to a self, not I, not mine, not somebody, not what belongs to somebody. If you ask now, this breath is, about this breath, did you tell this breath to come in, come out? No, it comes by itself. So there is not a person there. This breath is not a person. So one can see that this kind of process has nothing to do with something personal. It is like a natural process to see these things, something as natural process, and not to try to identify oneself with his body. And then he says, for the sake of a wider and wider and higher measure of knowledge and mindfulness. This is called Yatha Bhuta Jnana, means knowledge of the phenomena as they really are and not as we imagine them to be. And then he says, one abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. So the meaning is, independent, not dependent on craving and speculations or wrong views. Not clinging to anything in the world means in the world, one does not cling to anybody that this is myself or what belongs to myself. So now, those who can practice as called this observation of the body, if that the body is obvious, especially the breath, they can start practicing this. Just observe the breath in the way we've explained it. But the Buddha does not stop there. He also explains that how to observe the feelings, because some people they call what it is more obvious within the experience are the feelings, sensations in the body. So to observe the breath, it is something difficult for them. They can't grasp it. They can't observe it in a proper way. They can't be mindful of that. But if feelings are as called, you can tell them to observe the feelings. Yes, they can observe the feelings in a much easier way. Therefore, the Buddha is going to explain how to observe these feelings. And he says, one abides observing feelings as feelings, urgent, fully aware, mindful. So in this way now we have different feelings, and he says, now for example, there are pleasant feelings in our body, there are unpleasant, painful feelings, there are neutral feelings also. Also feelings connected with material stimuli and feelings connected with immaterial, spiritual, meditative stimuli. So regarding these feelings, now especially the three kinds of feelings, these are the most common feelings, and people can start observing these feelings. And then the Buddha says, when feeling a pleasant feeling, one understands, I feel a pleasant feeling. Therefore, one must be first aware, mindful of the objects one observes. So again, when feeling a painful feeling, one understands, I feel a painful feeling. So that is the area as called which some people can understand it much easier. And then he says, when feeling a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, one understands, I feel a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. This is called the neutral feeling. So therefore now, the first step in this case is to become aware. What is the feeling one feels? So one can name it, put a name on that. Okay, if it is pleasant, it's pleasant. If it is unpleasant, one can name it unpleasant or painful feeling. It is better to use the word feeling also, because one understands whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. It is the area about feelings. So that is the first step, to become aware. One can be mentally note this kind of feeling 2-3 times. And then the next step the Buddha says is to go and practice insight meditation. So to be only mindful and aware of an object, that is not called adequate in order to penetrate the nature of that object. So in order to penetrate that object, then the Buddha explains how to practice insight meditation. And he says, one abides observing in feelings the nature of rising or the nature of falling or the nature of both rising and falling. Here again, it is a rise and fall. The fundamental principle of Vipassana, as we mentioned, comes here again regarding feelings, because these feelings do not last long. We know, even if the most beautiful, very happy feeling we feel, we can't take it, put in the bottle and say, may this feeling never go from me. It's impossible. We know that all these feelings have a fleeting nature. So in order to become aware of this again and again, to be, as called, not to forget the nature of this feeling, one should see this rise and fall in these feelings again and again. So now, because some of these feelings, as called, they last longer. For example, if a feeling is present, does not fall immediately. In the breath, in the observation of the breath, you can easily observe that after the breath comes in, then it comes immediately afterwards the out breath. So, and then it is a quick change between in breath, out breath, in breath, and out. And you can see this rise and fall in a very continuous way. But in the feelings, sometimes feelings persist. They don't fall immediately. They don't disappear immediately. That's why the Buddha, in another sutta, explains how to observe the feelings in a more accurate way, especially if the feelings persist. They don't go very fast. Here he says, one knows feelings as they arise, as they stay, and as they disappear. So in this case now you can see that he says that if the feeling is staying, as called, that is rising feelings, there is also staying. For some time, some feelings persist and they stay. That means they remain for some time and after only fall. Therefore, if you, for example, feel some feeling in some sensation in certain part of the body, you just, and this sensation does not go, you just tell yourself, as called, mentally note, staying of this feeling. And then when you see fall, then only you can see tell fall. So in this case, you don't tell immediately rise and fall, but sometimes if the feeling persists, you use the word staying till that feeling falls, then you can tell fall. So therefore now regarding feelings, one can use 3 words here: rise, staying, and fall, according to the situation of the feeling. Some feelings, they rise very fast and they fall. Some, they last some time. So therefore, if they last, you just continue telling staying, or lasting. Lasting, you can tell it is the duration which the feeling remains, and after it falls, you can tell fall. So therefore now, if it is a pleasant feeling, for example, you mentally note pleasant feeling. So, and then go and see what? The rise, staying, and fall of this feeling. If it is unpleasant feeling, you mentally note unpleasant feeling, and then you can see the rise, staying, and fall of this feeling. Here, both mental noting should be done. The pleasant feeling is the first step to mentally note, and see the second step is to rise, staying, and fall, to see the rise and staying and fall. In the pleasant feeling also, you mentally note unpleasant feeling, if it is unpleasant, so, or painful feeling, and that is to be aware and mindful, and then go to the Vipassana part and see how this feeling also rises, stays, and falls. And then neutral feeling, the same. If there is a neutral feeling, you mentally note neutral feeling, and then you can see the rise, staying, and fall of this neutral feeling. So therefore now, especially with unpleasant feelings, which are painful, many people sometimes they have to take some more time to observe them. So, and to see the impermanent nature. So therefore, after the Buddha explains mindfulness, that there is the feeling is simply established in oneself, to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and strong mindfulness. The meaning is, there is only the feeling or a feeling process, not a being, not a person, not a woman, not a man, not the self, not what belongs to a self, not I, not mine, not somebody, not what belongs to somebody, for the sake of a wider and wider and higher measure of knowledge and mindfulness. This is again called Yatha Bhutanyana, knowledge of the phenomena as they really are, and not as we imagine them to be. So, and then he says, and one abides, not clinging, independent, not clinging to anything in the world. So the meaning is independent, not depending on craving and speculations or wrong views. Not clinging to anything in the world. In the world, one does not cling to any feeling that this is myself or what belongs to myself. So another aspect of our existence, where the Buddha explains how to observe it and to understand it, is about our mind. This is called observation of the mind. So especially with some common thoughts which arise in the mind, anger, desire, delusion, and many other thoughts, the Buddha explains 16 ways how one can observe the mind, what are the thoughts which arise. So at least we're going to explain only few of them, because most of the people are beginners, they can't observe all these thoughts. we are going to explain all the basics. So therefore now we'll give the examples how the Buddha explains to do so. So on abides, he says, observing the mind as mind, ardent, fully aware, and mindful. So here again, this is the first step, to be ardent, fully aware, and mindful. So, and then he is going to explain how to practice with Vipassana. So in this case now, he says, one understands mind with lust, with desire, as mind with lust or desire. Now we have translated here mind as called the word mind, but one can tell it as thought with lust or desire, or thought without, yes, so thought with lust or desire. Therefore, if desire arises into one mind, one can just observe it. Observe it how? First, to be aware of it. One should mentally note thought with desire or mind with desire 2-3 times. So, but then if there is, the Buddha says, one understands mind without lust or desire as mind without lust or desire. If that desire goes away, then one understand that there is no desire now. One can observe as called thought without desire 2-3 times to be aware of that. Again, if there is anger in one's own mind, one understands mind with hate or anger as mind with hate or anger. Therefore, if anger comes in our mind, so you mentally note anger, 2-3 times, thought with anger, mind with anger. So to be aware of that. And also one understands mind without hate or anger as mind without hate or anger. So if there is no anger in our mind, so we mentally note there is no anger. There is another aspect also, delusion. And he says one understands mind with delusion as mind with delusion. So delusion is here a lack of knowledge if the mind is confused. That's called. Then we have this kind of deluded mind. The mind is wondering what to do, what not to do. It has many doubts. It worries about things, sometimes imagines things, visualizes things, or dreams. This is called daydreaming. All these are deluded thoughts which come in our mind, and we can call them mind with delusion. And then is the mind without delusion as mind without delusion. If in our mind there is the delusion is gone, then the thought comes without delusion. So I can mentally note thought without delusion or mind without delusion. So that is to become mindful and aware. What are the thoughts which come in our mind? So especially those who have many thoughts in the mind, they can't observe the breath. They can't observe the feelings. They can go and observe the mind, because that is where it is within the range of experience. So that comes more often within the range of experience, thoughts. They can go and observe their thoughts. So after the Buddha explains how to be mindful and aware about these mental states, so he is going to give now how to observe them from the insight meditation. So, and he says, on abides observing in the mind its nature of rising, or its nature of falling, or its nature of both rising and falling. Here again, this is the Vipassana part, to see the rise and fall of these thoughts, of these minds which arise with anger, with desire or delusion. So therefore now, because sometimes this the mind also, yes. Now if there is mind with lust and desire, so I can first become fully aware of that, mentally note mind with lust or desire 2-3 times, and then you can see the rise, staying, and fall of this thought, of this mind. Because some thoughts of this, like with desire and so forth, do not fall immediately. They take some time for them to fall. Therefore, if they last for some time, you can tell also staying till you see the fall, and they fall. So, and then you mentally not fall. So therefore now, any thoughts who persist, sometimes they don't go away immediately. So you can continue telling, staying, and then when they fall, you can tell fall. You actually do it with mentally noting. So if there is mind without lust or desire, you mentally note it like that, and then go to see the rise and staying and fall. So if there is mind with desire or thought with desire, you mentally note it. So, and then go to the next step to see the rise, staying and fall of this anger. So if there is mind without anger, you mentally note, this is the first step, and then go to the second step and see rise, staying and fall of this mind without anger. The same way, if there is mind with delusion, you mentally note 2-3 times mind with delusion, and then go and see the Vipassana part, which is rise, staying and fall of this delusion. If there is mind without delusion, you mentally note it, and then go to see the Vipassana part, which is rise, staying and fall. So by doing so and so in this practice, the Buddha says, mindfulness that there is the mind is simply established in oneself to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and strong mindfulness. The meaning is there is only the mind or a mental process, not a being, not a person, not a woman, not a man, not the self, not what belongs to a self, not I, not mine, not somebody, not what belongs to somebody. For the sake of a wider and wider and higher measure of knowledge and mindfulness, this is called Yatha Bhuta Jnana, knowledge of the phenomena as they really are and not as we imagine them to be. And then the Buddha says, and one abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. So the meaning is independent, not dependent on craving and speculations and wrong views. Not clinging to anything in the world means in the world one does not cling to any mind that this is myself or what belongs to myself. So people, of course, who have difficulties to observe the body, to observe the feelings, and also the thoughts, there is another aspect as called which they can go observe, which the Buddha says about the observation of mental and material phenomena. So we're going to give an example how to do so, especially for people who have, for example, instead of thoughts, they have different visions, different pictures in the mind, or they hear some sounds, or like that, and to observe how these visions and also how the sounds also have the same nature of rise and fall. So therefore now the Buddha says, on abides observing mental and material phenomena as mental and material phenomena, urgent, fully aware, and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. So the first step is to be fully aware and mindful of this phenomenon. So, and then here there is some example how to do so. Here, for example, we have sense organs. Now the eye. So, and then we have sense object like visual objects. So if one can see how visual object is called influence our mind, because if we see that different colors, different shapes, this is impact in our mind. If, for example, the color is very beautiful, we arouse beautiful feelings. So nice feelings, but the color, the shape of an object is ugly, we also feel bad. We don't have good feelings. We have some unpleasant feelings coming in us. Therefore now sense objects like visual object influences our mind. Without our knowledge, we get influenced. So this sometimes happens automatically. Now people who are very fond for visual object, they can take the visual object and see how they have impact in their mind, and see how these visual objects also, they are also impermanent, they are not permanent. So, and not to cling to these visual objects. The same now, in the same way we have the ear, we have also sounds. Sounds also influence our mental makeup, because If there are pleasant sounds, we feel happy. If there are unpleasant sounds, we feel unhappy. So therefore now, without even our knowledge, sounds can influence our mental states. So people who are very fond of sounds, they can take sounds as an object and observe them, how the sounds also they rise and fall, they are also impermanent. So, and then we have the nose, we have smells, some is called, and also smells play a big role of our mental states. If we smell something pleasant, we feel so good. But if it's unpleasant, we feel so bad. So therefore now smells influence our mental states, and we automatically sometimes without our knowledge, we feel sometimes happy, sometimes unhappy because of the smells. So therefore now if one can take the smells and observe them, how also they are impermanent, how also they rise and fall, and not to be what's called happy and unhappy because of these smells and so forth. They can't influence his mind. So in the same way with the tongue and the tastes. Now taste also, what we eat, what we drink, what put in our mouth plays a big role for our mental states. If there are pleasant tastes, we feel happy. If not, we feel unhappy. Sometimes also shouting to other people. So therefore now, if there is too much salt, we complain. If it is little salt, we also complain. So therefore now, this test plays a big role for our mental dispositions. So by observing these tests, how it's called influence us, and to see the impermanent nature of these states, one does not get influenced by them. So then we have the body, we have tangible object. What we touch plays a big role. The clothes we wear, the bed sheets we have, the pillows, whatever we touch and so forth, other objects, other people's body and so forth, influence our mental states. If they are pleasant, tangible things, we feel happy. If not, we feel unhappy. So therefore now one can take this tangible object as called observation and see the impermanent nature. So then we have also the mind and also ideas. Our ideas also influence our makeup. So sometimes we have pleasant ideas, sometimes unpleasant ideas. So they make us feel, they arouse certain feelings in us. So therefore now, and one can just observe these ideas, how they're also impermanent. One does not click in these ideas. So that is first. The first step is to be aware of this object. Now, for example, visual object or sounds. That is the first step. So, and then one goes to the second step to practice insight meditation. Therefore, the Buddha says, one abides observing in the mental and material phenomena the nature of rising or the nature of falling or the nature of both rising and falling. Here again, that is the fundamental principle of Vipassana, to see the rise and fall of this phenomenon. So then in this way, one can observe in whatever of this object is more prominent, because some people are very fond of sights, some people of sound, some people of smells. It depends what is within your range of experience. You take that object and then you can observe it in a regular way. From the first step is to be aware of that. 2-3 times you name it, mentally note what the object is, if it's sound or smell or taste and so forth, and then go to the second step and observe what is the nature of this object to see its rise and fall. If it stays for some time, you can also tell stay. Then when you see the fall, you can say fall. So, and then the Buddha says, mindfulness that there are mental and material phenomena is simply established in oneself to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and strong mindfulness. The meaning is, there are only mental and material phenomena, not a being, not a person, not a woman, not a man, not a self, not what belongs to a self, not I, not mine, not somebody, not what belongs to somebody. For the sake of a wider and wider and higher measure of knowledge and mindfulness. This is again called Yatha Bhuta Jnana, knowledge of the phenomena as they really are and not as we imagine them to be. And then the Buddha says, and on abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. The meaning is independent, not dependent on craving and speculation, and not clinging to anything in the world. Not clinging to anything in the world means in the world, one does not cling to any mental immaterial phenomena that these are myself or what belongs to myself. So now, up to now, we explained different objects, how to observe them. But as we have already mentioned, the fundamental principle of insight is to see rise and fall. So by seeing this rise and fall, either in the breath or in the mind or in the feelings or in mental material phenomena, so that does not change. That becomes constant because this fundamental principle, one can see it everywhere. So although the object changes, the breath is different, the feelings are different, the mind is different. So, but this fundamental principle occurs again and again. One can see this again and again. That is where the mind becomes concentrated, because one can see this constantly occurring, this rise and fall, whatever one sees it. Because of this kind of observance again and again, there arises a kind of samadhi in the mind, which is called Vipassana samadhi. It's called concentration by insight meditation. So regarding this Vipassana samadhi, the Buddha explains it in different suttas. I will give you here an example. So, and he says, what is the development of concentration, samadhi bhavana, that leads to mindfulness and awareness, which is called sati sampajanya. Now, it is regarding the satipatthana, so what we explain now. And he says, here, one knows feelings as they arise, as they stay, and as they disappear. So here again, he says, this rise and staying and fall. Therefore, this is the samadhi, because one sees this principle again and again. Whatever one sees, either in the feelings or in the mind, one can see this principle. That is a samadhi the meditator gets. That is constant. That does not change. Of course, the feelings are different, but he also gives another example. So here again, with perceptions, he says, one knows perceptions as they arise, as they stay, and as they disappear. So therefore, here again, the principle is rise, staying, and fall. So therefore now, and then he says also, one knows thoughts as they arise, as they stay, as they disappear. So here it is called again rise, staying, and fall. So he gives different examples, but if one observes in the body, in every aspect within our range of experience, so there is nothing which does not have this fundamental principle of rise and staying and fall. So therefore now, if the meditator practices Vipassana, although the object change, it is the body or the feelings, the mind, thoughts, perception, and so forth, so one can see the same thing. This is a universal principle which occurs everywhere. That is why his mind gets concentrated and he practices called Vipassana samadhi. So therefore now, to see this rise and fall, the Buddha praised it again and again. So in different other suttas also, especially in Dhammapada, this is a very famous book which Buddhists also read. He says, even though one should live 100 years without comprehending how all things rise and fall, yet better indeed is a single day's life of one who comprehends how all things rise and fall. And the last words of the Buddha were, all phenomena have the nature of fall. Try to understand this with diligence. So therefore now, and those who attain Sotapannahood, like for example, the attainment of the stream entry, which is called Sotapannahood, the first stage of enlightenment. So they also understand whatever has the nature to rise, all that has the nature to cease, the fall. This is how they get the first stage of enlightenment, by seeing this principle of rise and fall of every phenomenon. So this is, for those who understand Pali, this is the sentence they utter after they attain Sotapannahood. So, and this sentence, this phrase or sentence occurs several times for those who attend this kind of attendance. This understanding is called the eye of the Dhamma, the Dhamma Chakku, that is the eye of true nature of all phenomena. Having seen this truth through the observance of rise and fall, a Sotapanna has severed the bond of skeptical doubt and now possesses the intellect, which is excellent and liberating, leading to the complete cessation of existential suffering. Therefore now, today, if we're going to observe, so to summarize what we have already told up to now, so the observation has to be done on the body. If the body, for example, the breath is more prominent, one can go and observe the breath. So, but if the feeling is more prominent, one can shift and go observe the feeling. So if the feeling disappears, one can go back to the body, to the breath. So it depends what is more prominent within one's own experience. So then one can observe the mind if the mind is more prominent. So because if thoughts come in the mind, one can go and observe the thoughts. If there are no thoughts, one can go back to the body and observe the breath. So in the same way with mental and material phenomena, if these are prominent, one can go and observe them, to be fully aware of them. That is the first step. And to see, the second step is to see the rise and fall of that. So therefore now the principle here is observe what is more obvious to your experience. You have the body, as called, you have the feeling, you have the mind, you have the mental material phenomena. You can actually change. Now, if mental and material phenomena are not prominent, but the mind is more prominent, you can go to the mind. If the mind is not prominent, so if the mind is not prominent, but the feeling is more prominent, you can go observe the feeling. If the feeling is not prominent, but the breath is more prominent, you can go and observe the breath. So this is how the observation is to be done. And then here, for example, with the in-breath, out-breath, you can observe in-breath and mentally note in-breath. And then second step is to go and see the rise. And out-breath, mentally note out-breath, and then you can see also the fall, mentally note fall. You can observe it in the tip of the nose. Here, for example, we have in any part of the body, you can observe it in the nose, on the chest, on the body, on the belly. But you can go and observe it on the tip of the nose. If it is more prominent there, you can go and observe it there. So the in-breath and mental note in-breath, so and then see the rise. So out-breath, you can also mentally note out-breath and see the fall. Or you can do it first, mentally note in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, and then go and observe the rise and fall of it in out-breath, in-breath and out-breath. So another way it is to see in the in-breath, the rise and fall. The in-breath itself has a beginning and an end. The beginning is a rise and the end is a fall. The same way with out-breath, so you can see the rise and fall of the out-breath. So because the out-breath also begins and ends. When it begins, that is the rise. When it falls, is the fall. The end, when it ends, is the fall. So in this way, now you mentally note in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath. After go and observe rise and fall of each in and breath, in-breath and out-breath. So regarding feelings, if while you observe the breath, some pain comes in the body, on the knee, on the neck, maybe on the head, that is more prominent within your experience. The mind is occupied with that. It can be pleasant feeling, it can be unpleasant feeling, which painful feeling, it can be neutral feeling. So you mentally note what kind of feeling this is 2-3 times, and then you can go and see the rise and fall or staying of this pleasant or unpleasant feeling. Regarding the observation of the mind, you have already noted there are, as called, the main thoughts which arise in the mind is maybe anger, desire, delusion. So you mentally note them, what kind of thought this is. So, and then you can observe, as called, the rise and fall of this thought. If you can't understand what kind of thought this is, you just tell, just simply thought, grossly. So, and then observe how this thought arises and falls. Again, with observation of mental and material phenomena, where I already mentioned, it can be visual object, sound, smell, taste, tangibles. So if these things come, you can see them internally. For example, if you close your eyes, you can see some pictures, like a video, for example, come in your skull. You can observe visual object, or seeing, and see how it stays this object and falls. If you can hear sound, it's external or internal sound. You can also mentally note it, sound, and then you can observe how this stays, and then also falls. So in this way, now we can observe the rise and fall of these objects. So depending what is more prominent. So if there are no mental and material phenomena, you just return back to the breath, because the breath, it is continuous. It does not stop. Now, thoughts can stop sometimes coming. Feelings sometimes can stop coming. Mental and material phenomena stop coming. But the breath continues. Therefore, if there is no anything for you to observe, just go and observe the breath and see, as called, the rise and fall of the breath. So this is the explanation which basic things which a meditator should know. So although it looks, as called, some people they think it is difficult, it is not. Just sit and observe. You can start with the breath, what is more prominent, and then slowly observe what other things come in your mind. So which is more prominent? If thoughts come in your mind, you just go and observe the thoughts. If feelings come, you can switch and go to the feelings. If if no feelings or thoughts are there, you just go back to the breath. You return back to the breath again, when no thoughts, no feelings are. So, all right, now we are going to devote around 5 minutes for some question and answers. For those who want to ask some specific questions, because we're going to have time to expand a lot, different questions and so forth. Later, of course, after the meditation class, we have plenty of time. Those who want to ask questions, they can remain and ask. But many people, they are eager to meditate. Therefore, now we're trying to keep the least time, at least 5 minutes, for somebody who wants to ask some very specific question to clarify some point regarding what we've explained. Otherwise, after 5 minutes, we are going to start the class. So now, if you want to ask questions, there are two options. You can, or three options, excuse me. You can go down to the screen of Zoom, and then you can see different icons below. If you put the arrow or you put your finger, so on the screen down, you can see certain small icons like the microphone, you can see the chart and so forth. And then in the end, you can see a small face which says reactions. There are two hands there. So, and you can raise the palm, which means you want to ask something. If you raise the thumb, that means you agree with something. So for asking, you raise the thumb. So this kind of hand. And then we can know that you want to ask some question. So another way it is, you can write something on the chat box. That is how we also can communicate and read the, what's called the question. And the last resort is, if you have problem, you can raise your physical hand, and then we can understand that you want to ask something. All right, now in the chat room, it is how long will our meditation last? We are going to decide today. After 5 minutes, we are going to decide how long time. There will be poll. So, and then some people and see, maybe 45 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, something like that. So then, are there any questions?
Three people raised their hand. Was Rui, Justine, and Moa. Moa actually, she did this. I don't know if she wants to ask something or if she agrees with it.
Rui.
Yes.
First. Okay.
Yes, you can talk. He's on.
Can you hear me properly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes?
Yes, very well.
Okay. So in this meditation, Vipassana, I think you also emphasize the fact that we should not attach to the self or being or a person, and more like to the process or to the thing in itself. But so maybe you can explain that with a little bit more clarity. What is the importance of not of just being the process and not realizing that it's happening to the to our body or to ourself?
Yes, I will explain this because actually now we have two kinds of knowledges in this context. One is the empirical knowledge, direct knowledge by observing the rise and fall, and there is another inferential knowledge. If you observe this phenomenon again and again, you see now these thoughts, many of these thoughts, they come. You never tell them to come. So they stay. You never tell them to stay. And they go. You never tell them to go. Who are these thoughts? Then, by observation, again and again, now you observe this again. This is direct knowledge, okay? Direct experience, direct observation. Slowly, the inferential knowledge will come. That this cannot be me because I never told these thoughts to come. So from where they come? So I never told them to go. They go. Who is this? All right. So that is the question. And you can see it cannot be me. It cannot be me, it cannot be myself. That is inferential knowledge. So, but this will come later. It's not going to come like that at once. And we should not reflect, this is not me. This will come by itself. You don't need to force yourself to understand this. Therefore, now the Buddha never tells in this Satipatthana Sutta, you should reflect all this anicca impermanent, all this is anatta, is not self. No. The emphasis is on direct observation. So later, what you are going to understand, of course, after observing, you will come to the conclusion that even these feelings, for example, many of these feelings, we never tell them to come. Happy feelings, sometimes they come. We want to keep them, but they don't stay, they go. So without our permission, they come. Without our permission, they go. So therefore now, who are these feelings? It is me. It is myself. It is I. So can I take this happy feeling which I have now to keep it in a bottle, to seal it, and it will never go from me? So what are these phenomena? So later, of course, this is how by direct observation, one can come to the inferential knowledge, to come to some conclusions, how we live in a fallacy regarding our thoughts, our feelings, how we identify ourselves with these thoughts and feelings. And then we get also disappointed. So, but this will be a later knowledge. So therefore now I just explained the inferential knowledge also, because it's not only direct observation. So the Buddha tells it's just the mind, it's just a feeling. What does it mean? It is not me. It's just a feeling. Like for example, if you see a cloud on the sky, it's just a cloud. The cloud is yours. You can't tell. It's called the cloud is going to stay forever in the sky. No, it's not static. It will go. These feelings, these thoughts like that. So like clouds, they come, they go by their own nature. So therefore now what we do is we identify with them. We think there's something solid within us, and then we get disappointed. But anyway now, the emphasis is first, as I told you, you try to observe yourself. It is on the empirical level and come to your conclusion. So come to your conclusion and see how these things happen. Of course, if one continues doing so, again and again, one can see the mechanism behind. Why these thoughts come? Why these feelings come? There is a mechanism. So I did not mention this because it is short time. So by observing these thoughts again and again, one can see the causality and conditionality of these thoughts and feelings, and also our body. Therefore, now this is a second step for advanced meditators. They can go and see these things. So, but now if I tell you and so forth, it will be something difficult to grasp. Therefore, start with some simple steps. Start what is more within your range of experience and observe these things to see the nature of these things. Of course, you will get all samadhi. Samadhi means vipassana samadhi, because many people, they expect to get some samadhi only from samatha meditation. Yes, that is samatha samadhi, from samatha meditation, from tranquility meditation. But here also you get samadhi. So you don't get lost. Whatever you see, any thoughts, feelings, so forth, you see actually the same thing, rise and fall. So the mind is not lost. You actually see the same thing. Wherever you turn your mind, you will see the same thing. It doesn't matter. So, all right, now about this not self and so forth, I just tell you this is inferential knowledge. We will see how it is the fallacy we have regarding our identification with these objects. So now, okay, now 5 minutes have passed. I don't think you are going to explain something more. For any other questions, we can have plenty of time after the meditation sessions, because people who are interested, they can stay longer. So, and then we're going to start now. You just simply observe, as we have told, what is more obvious to you. Now, we're going to sit, for example, with a spine erect. Usually that is a posture we take in order to start. So, and then sit in comfortable posture. You can sit on the chair, maybe if you have difficulty sitting on the ground. So how, and you can sit. We can sit on a cushion, you can sit on a bed, you can sit also down cross-legged on the whatever, however it's called, you sit. Important is that you keep your spine erect. So, and then start observing. You can start with a breath. So that is easy. It's called, you can see whatever part of the body is more prominent, you can observe the breath, because it doesn't matter where you observe it, you can see the same thing, that the breath rises and falls. So in the same way, if, for example, while you are breathing in and out, if thoughts come, which occupy the mind, there are some strong thoughts, intense thoughts, and you can't go observing the breath. Then you can shift your mind, go to the thoughts and observe the way we'll explain it. If you can't see the details about the breath, you just mentally note thoughts, and go to see the Vipassana part, how these thoughts rise, stay, and fall. So if feelings are prominent, you can shift to the feelings. So actually you can rotate to the body, to the thoughts and the feelings, whatever is more prominent. You don't go because one random thought came and you shift your attention. No, it might be some intense thought, so you can understand it. So if it is some random thoughts who come and go, just ignore them, because they are like shooting stars. They just come and go very fast. So don't run after them. But there are some thoughts which persist. Yes, you can shift your question, your mind, and then you can observe them. So the same way with feelings. Some feelings, they are very rapid. They just come and go. So you just go ahead and observe the breath. You don't need to be distracted by such feelings. But if there are some feelings are very intense and they occupy the mind, then you can shift your attention to the feelings. If there is nothing, go back to the breath. Okay, so now the polling results show that most of the people, they want to have 30 minutes. Some they want to have 60, some 45, some 40 minutes. Okay, today, in order to please everybody, we're going to meditate 35 minutes. So then, what else to do? So then, all right now, but those who, for example, who at least are present, you must know that this is a session to understand the technique. So, and then you can practice on your own, wherever you have time. We are going to say, those who request, we are going to send also this PowerPoint presentation. So then you can have it and have a look anytime you need it. All right, so then before starting, you can sit comfortably, as I told you. Now the bell is going to ring within maybe 1-2 minutes. So please, for those who have the volume too high, you can lessen the volume, because if the bell rings, you might get disturbed. So lessen your volume, and it will be not a disturbance. So it seems the time is over. Those who want to meditate 1 hour, they may be disappointed. So then, all right, as usually, any questions can be raised, because now, for us at least, there is plenty of time. We are not in a hurry. So therefore now there is, you can ask any question you like. So then, so the way, as I told you, to ask questions, if you go to the screen of Zoom, down on the bottom, and you put the arrow or you put your finger, so there is a microphone and so forth, small icons. So then, and also the chat box. So at the end, there is a small face which says reactions. You can click to this hand to show that you want to raise a question. So then we are able to know. Otherwise, you can write something on the chat. And the last resort is to raise your physical hand.
I think Diego Garrido is asking something in the chat.
So yes, he says a lot of fast sensations. I think I couldn't watch the fall of one when another one is starting. Any advice? So if the sensations are more prominent, you just see the fall. That's called. If you can see the fall, slowly, you can see how also the staying. You just staying. If there are many sensations, there are a series of sensations coming. You just tell them staying, and see how they fall, and again they rise, and so forth, if they are prominent. Otherwise, if they are very rapid, you can't understand what kind of sensation it is, and so forth, and you have some problem. If they are not very obvious, you just go back to the breath. Because we take as object what is more clear in our mind, is more prominent, more obvious for us to easily see it. If there is some obscure object, like maybe some thoughts, very obscure, they come very fast and they go. So we don't run after them. The same goes to feelings. So we just to take an object which is quite very easy to follow and understand it. So then, therefore now with his feelings, you just tell them grossly, staying, and so forth, if they rise very rapidly. So staying, they are prominent. So then slowly you can see how they fall. Again they fall. You just note the fall. And then gradually you can see also how they stay, how also they rise. So then, Marie asked the question, how can you cope with physical pain for a health problem during the meditation? Now, physical pain, it is some people, they have it, what's called, and it's somehow common. So you just stay with this physical pain and observe it as I told you. Because even if the pain is there, you don't get affected because you see it as a natural phenomenon and you don't mentally suffer because of it. So then your problem does not becomes more only somatic, it does not become psychosomatic. Because people who get the sensation in the body, they also suffer mentally. They identify themselves with the sensation, and they think, why it is me that I have this pain, it's me is paining, and so forth. They get so much affected, and then they suffer mentally also. But if you observe these sensations or these pains which come in the body, and slowly how they rise, stay and fall, rise and stay and fall. So you just see them as an object, and you don't identify, you don't relate yourself with them, because you know that they are just impermanent phenomena. It is of no use getting either any aversion towards them, so, or even attachment to them. So that is how you can liberate your mind. It is the sensation probably might not stop coming again and again, but at least you don't get affected. You see them as a natural processes. So of course, if you take some medication, you can also, there is some health problem, serious health problem, you can continue taking your medication, but at least you don't suffer mentally. Yes, Hari asked the question, how long should one do this meditation to get the best benefits? It is different from person to person, but it is good to have a regular time. And because most of the people, they get some momentum after 45 minutes. In the beginning, the mind is to be scattered and so forth. And then after 45 minutes, one gets quite good momentum. It becomes more clear, the mind. Especially try to meditate in the hours where you are not tired, you are quite energetic and so forth, and don't meditate after the meals, because most people, they feel sleepy after the meal. So then, but times would you feel energetic and there is silence in your room. Silence is important. You have to keep some silence because you want to give all your attention inwards. So, and observe these things, and any distractions are better to be avoided. So then some people, after 3-4 days, they can get good results. Some people, they need longer time. So it is different from person to person, because people, the environment plays a role. Some who are a lot of family responsibilities, they are difficulties to concentrate the mind, because they're starting thinking, I should do this, after that. The mind is shooting like a shooting star, running there and there. So it's difficult to concentrate. Others who have less responsibilities, of course, it is much easier for them to concentrate. So therefore now this environment, the environment you are living in plays also a role. And therefore, but you try it, because that is also, you have to see the reality of our mind, our feelings, how we get attached to this phenomenon, and we get disappointed by not seeing the impermanent nature of the things. Moa asked the question, what happens at the top of the skull? It stays very long, it is like a breath still now. Is it delusion? So probably because we don't breathe with the top of the skull, we breathe with the nose. So then, but you can observe if there is some sensation, you just observe as you feel it, no problem. You don't try to speculate what it is. If you feel something on the top of the skull, like a breath like that, you just observe the way you see it. Never mind. So you just note it like a sensation. If you feel, if you see, you think it's a breath, you note it like that, mentally note the way you understand it. That is the first step. And then go to the second step to see what happens with his sensation, what is happening in the top of the skull. If there is a sensation, you just, the sensation persists, you just tell staying. As long as it stays, after if it falls, you observe that it falls. So again, if it comes, you can tell rise. If it stays, you can stay. If you see the fall, it falls. So then we want to understand the nature of this phenomenon, not to interpret them. So, and to find them like a mystery. Just observe what is there. So don't try to give interpretations to a scholar. Later, of course, you might understand what this phenomena is, but the cause has to appear by itself. Don't try to chase the cause before you observe it again and again. Try to observe this phenomenon again and again. Maybe it will disappear, it never come again. So this phenomena just, they are not last long sometimes. So whatever happens, you will have a knowledge that at least these phenomena are impermanent, they rise and fall. Even without our permission, they come. Without our permission, they go. So you are not identifying with them, and that is somehow a liberating knowledge. So Anomis asked the question, it is the first time that I experienced meditation with this technique, rise and fall. I found it somehow helpful to stay alert and focused on what is happening, but I'm wondering if the observer is actually the mind. How do we let go and go deep in meditation if we are always alert? Sometimes I have the feeling that the observer is the mind. How do I clarify this? Thank you. Yes, the observer is the mind now, because it's actually consciousness. We have a quality in our mind which material things do not have. That is consciousness. We become conscious of an event. What happens inside us, outside, because we have this kind of phenomenon which is called consciousness. The Buddha calls it Vijnana Dhatu, the element of consciousness. It's just an element. He calls it element because there is no body there. It's just like a force. It's a force which we use in order to know things. It has the ability to be conscious, to know some object. Material things do not have this ability. Now, if you put your hand on the desk can't feel your hand. It's not the ability to feel it, to know that there is a hand upon me. But you can know that your hand is upon the table because you have consciousness. That is called bodily consciousness. You have also consciousness in the eye, consciousness in the ear, consciousness in the nose, consciousness in the tongue. Therefore, we have actually 6 kinds of consciousnesses, which we use them in order to have the experience of objects. So when we actually see our thoughts, our feelings and so forth, we see through this consciousness. And this consciousness is not alone, does not operate alone. It operates with other qualities in the mind which are called mental factors. So like for example, desire is a mental factor. Anger is a mental factor. So delusion is another mental factor. Memory or mindfulness is another mental factor. Therefore now, consciousness can't operate alone. A feeling is a mental factor. We feel objects, we perceive them, we think about them, all this, it is a kind of function of the mind. We call it mind because it is not one thing. There are many things together which operate for us to have an experience. So it is actually the mind, if we want to see what gives us this information. So, and this is kind of training of the mind. We train the mind to give us the correct information. Now, with this observation, we have to have the correct information to see how things actually happen. So if we don't train the mind will generate fantasies and speculations and so forth, try to interpret things in its own way without proper methodical, systematical observation. So therefore now this observation is very important. It is like a scientist who wants to understand an object, a phenomenon. He has to use, first step is to use observation. Without observation, this is not science. It is fantasy, science fiction. Okay, so therefore now a science has to observe this phenomenon again and again, whatever he sees. Later, of course, he can come to conclusions. And some observation has to be carried out for months. That's called whatever many scientists found and so forth. It goes by constant and methodical observation to come to a conclusion how a phenomenon operates. So in the same way now, we also use the same, we can tell it scientific method, but it is something like method. It's something systematic method. By observing this phenomena in a certain way without trying to interpret them, we just see the nature of them. Slowly, of course, we can come to the conclusion. So how these things operate and so forth. But for the time being, the first step is to observe them. And there are two kinds of observations, just to be aware of the object, the first one, and then the second step is to see the nature of them, to see the rise and fall of them. Because that is what this phenomena as characteristic have. Just the rise, therefore sometimes and fall. So if one sees it again and again, then all these fallacies will slowly will slow down and one has a better picture what happens within oneself. So the observer is actually the mind. Christine asked the question, if I understood correctly, through Vipassana meditation, I realized that I am not my breath, I am not my thoughts, I am not my feelings, and I am not the physical and mental phenomena. The question is, what am I? So yes, people ask this question from ancient times. What am I? Who am I? So they put all that the I concept, they want to have a pillar inside them to identify, to cling to something. But with this meditation, I can see that we are actually conditioned beings. We are beings who are conditioned according to the conditions which are in our environment. So we're bundle, an aggregate of causes and conditions. Now, for example, as long as we have oxygen, we are. 1 minute without oxygen, who you are? We die. So therefore, oxygen is a condition for us to have the perception of I. All right? Because we inhale, we are happy. If we inhale oxygen, we can jump, we can go outside and run and do everything. And we feel so big. And our perception of I increases. So we think we are somebody. We build the kind of personality due to oxygen. So, but 1 moment, 1 minute without oxygen, so everything collapses. Our life collapses. Who we are? We are dependent originating beings. We depend on oxygen, to tell like that. But it's not on oxygen. We depend on so many factors, on many conditions in life to feel that I am. And this I am is just an idea. We built this idea. It's a kind of concept we built because we want to identify something within us as a permanent thing. So, but all these conditions change. Now, oxygen might have it today, tomorrow might not have it. So people, they don't die not because of lack of oxygen. They die of so many other causes. So therefore now, we are, for example, we depend on weather conditions. So if the weather conditions for the floods, so as long as there are no floods, we can very happy. But sometimes floods come, they kill so many people, like ants. People, they killed like ants, a big flood. And then we have earthquakes, we have, I don't know, as called, you may count so many, you put a whole list, how many things can kill us anytime, sicknesses. And then we have coronavirus these days. So we depend on so many conditions. If we don't take precautions, our life is all the time in danger. We are conditioned. If the conditions and our environment is favorable, we are. If they don't, we don't. We are not. We are zero. So therefore, now this perception of I, we build them as long as there are favorable conditions in our environment. So, and then we feel happy and so forth as long as conditions exist. But one condition, if it is lacking, so therefore now, for example, we have this virus. One virus comes in our life and this can destroy everything. This small creature, if you call it, can destroy sometimes many lives. So therefore now, who we are dependent on the conditions which are around us. We're dependent originating. Therefore, the Buddha speaks about paticca samuppada, the dependent origination. So, and if we see, we're a bundle of conditions. We depend on these conditions, but we identify ourselves with these conditions. We think, I'm this, I'm that, while this condition changing all the time. We try to identify with something impermanent and to build a kind of permanent idea that there is something within us which is not changing, is all the time I. So if we investigate these things, we change every moment. From childhood, from the time we've been small, so we had different idea about I. After we've grown up, we have different idea. After tomorrow, maybe we might have different idea about ourselves. So this perception of I changes. So then if we get a lottery, we're different persons, like from yesterday. We think so big and so what about us. Today, if we are very poor, we think very low about us. So therefore now, this perception of I change. Sometimes it's called, we think very big about us. Sometimes very small. We have this kind of complexes, superiority complex, inferiority complex. So therefore, why it is called complex? Because it is actually, it is a bundle of things we identify with. Although these things, they change. So therefore now, we are in what's called a bundle of changing conditions. That is what we are. But we make the mistake to identify ourselves with that. And we get disappointed if this condition change. So therefore now, I can understand this by direct observation. This is nothing to believe. It's nothing to believe. Therefore, one has to use this direct observation, see these things as they really happen. We don't try to put any interpretation to this phenomena, just observe them again and again. The conclusion will come. The knowledge will dawn upon you. What is behind all this phenomena? So how we have the fallacy to identify ourselves with this phenomena, to be attached in this phenomenon, and ultimately we suffer because of that. So Joanna Marku asked the question, because I'm new to meditation, is it common to feel lightheaded when observing the breathing? Thank you. Yes, it is very common. People who observe the breathing process, they focus their mind on this process and so forth. They bring the mind very close to them. So, and then they, it's called, all the energy of the mind comes closer to them, and not only the head, but sometimes the whole body feels very light. So if you continue observing the breath again and again, sometimes there are moments when you feel your body is no more there. You lose a perception of the body. So that is nothing unusual, because our body, if you can, I can give you a simile or some like an example, it's like a balloon. When the balloon is full of air, so this balloon stays straight. But if the air goes, then the balloon goes flat on the ground. So our body like that. So if there is enough air in our body, so our body can keep kept very straight. Sometimes we also lose the what's called the gravity. That is what's called the weight of our body. We lose the weight of our body. We don't feel the weight. And then there is a time when, because the perception of the body disappears, we don't lose, understand that our body is heavy at all. So in this way, so because the wind element circulates so well in our body, so then it fills our body and our body becomes like balloon. You don't feel any weight. So that is because of concentrating our breath, our mind to the breath. And all our breath becomes very smooth. And this can happen as what then you can feel lightheaded and also light-bodied. This is what the Buddha speaks about kaya lahuta and chitta lahuta, lightness of the body and lightness of the mind also. The mind also becomes very light. So then these are the effects of meditation. So Smitri asked the question, at which point or how should one start getting a grasp of not selfness of observed phenomena? For instance, I see lots of sensations and thoughts, but still I notice I do consider them mine or related to me. With breathing, it's a special difficulty because when I try to watch it, I immediately start regulating it, making it even mine. So, yes, at which point? For some people, it gets some time. So, to understand this not self, that is not self there. So, I can't tell you exact what point, at what minute, what second. So, it needs some maturity and perseverance to do this meditation again and again. So,
Bante, δεν ακούγεστε. Δεν ακούγεστε. Βάλτε και βγάλτε το μικρόφωνο.
Με ακούτε?
Ναι. Εντάξει.
Ναι, εντάξει.
I know it's all Greek to you, doesn't matter.
So then, okay, I will repeat this question. I don't know whether you will follow the whole thing. I will repeat from the beginning. So then the question is, at which point, how should one start getting a grasp of not selfness of observed phenomena? For instance, I see lots of sensations and thoughts, but still I notice I do consider them mine or related to me. With breathing, it's especially difficult because when I try to watch it, I immediately start regulating it, making it even more mine. So now at which point, as I also mentioned, so it is different from person to person. I can't tell at which minute and which second this can happen. So it needs maturity. One has to have a regular practice to see this again and again, because this perception of me and mine, it has been established in us for so long time now. It is, we can't expect them to immediately, because we meditate once a day, this perception is going to leave us. It's not like that. It needs time and maturity and so forth to do so. But it has to come gradually. We don't expect this to happen like a suddenly. So gradually, this phenomena can be seen as not self and so forth, as not mine. So then, therefore now, in regarding the breath, now you usually observe the natural breath. By trying to regulate the breath, we try to put something artificial. We try to do things artificially, which is not part of our physiology. So therefore now in meditation, we try to see the physiological aspect of our body as it happens. So in order to understand there is an autonomous system in our body, how our body breathes by itself. We don't need to tell breathe in, breathe out. Even if we sleep, our body goes on. By itself, it breathes in, breathes out. So therefore now, even without knowledge, if we walk, we don't even be aware that we're breathing in, breathe out. But still our body does it. Without our permission, it does it. Even if you tell it to stop, it does not stop. So therefore, except if we force it, so which is unnatural. So therefore, we try to see the natural thing, even thoughts and so forth. We don't try to fight them, to stop them. We try to observe them. We try to see how these things happen naturally. I call in the regular way they happen. In order to understand them. If we try to modify them, we are not going to understand them. So therefore, try to not to regulate your breath while meditating. Just watch what is there. The physiological part of your body, not the artificial part.
Hello, Bante. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I wanted to add something to this question.
Yes.
When I start to bring more attention to my breath, I feel it to have different needs, and therefore it alterates. So sometimes the limit between
Hello.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was saying that when I pay attention to my breath, it starts to have different needs. Yes, I start to want to take a deeper breath, for example.
Yes.
So then, would you consider that to be physiological, or would you consider that to be an afflictuation of the mind, a need which I should try to let go of?
So no, you just observe now, because sometimes our body naturally needs sometimes to take a big, deep breath. So let it take by itself. So you don't try to regulate it. So if the body needs to take more oxygen and so forth and breathe more, let it do it by itself. So you just be an observer, so and not a manipulator of the body. So if you manipulate things and so forth, we are not going to understand them, how they really happen in the natural process. So therefore, try as much as possible to be objective and objective observer, not to regulate things. Sometimes if it goes out of your hand, never mind. So then, but try as much as possible. So with this deep breath and so forth, if it comes by itself, okay, take it as it comes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So there is another question from France. So some people said to me, this meditation technique can help us see our past and future, but I don't see it. Could you explain me more about this opinion? From practicing, I only see the rise and fall of my breath and my mental formations. Yes, this is how usually one starts as a beginner. One should see the rise and fall of this phenomena, what is more obvious to oneself. But if one progresses with this meditation, this can lead also to see the whole mechanism. Why we are breathing, why we are thinking, how these mental formations come up. So, and then slowly, I can discover the mechanism behind that. There is some conditionality. So I will tell you some example, one just a small example, gross example for you to understand this conditionality. So causality and conditionality. Now, I will give you an example with desire. Desire is something which many people have. So as soon as people get up from the bed in the morning, they desire to do this, to do that, and all the activity on the day, it is because of desires. So otherwise, if they, people, if they don't have desire, just sit down and do nothing. But what they motivate them to do things is because they desire something to do. Okay, undesired is something you can understand. I will give a gross example with desire. So how this desire arises in us? We can, if you observe, I will give you an example. Now, if there is a beautiful flower in front of us, so let's see a red flower. We have a red flower in front of us. So we see it, and then desire arises to come close to the flower, to touch it, sometimes to take it, to put it in a vase. So beautiful thing. So now let's investigate how this happens. Okay. Now the object which make us to desire something is the flower. It must be beautiful. If it is ugly, we don't care. We're not going to look at it. All right. So it must be beautiful. It must certain shape, some certain color, which is attractive. So that is our desire comes in us and pushes us towards the flower. Sometimes without our knowledge, we become like automatic machines, all right? So we go to the flower. So then that's why what attracts us. So, but here you can see, okay, the flower is the reason, the cause. Let's see, is the cause why our desire arose. But then we can see that there are conditions also, all right? So then now, if the flower is in the dark place, we can't see it, then desire is not going to arise. One condition for desire to arise, it is light. If there is light, yes, we can see the flower. Yes, desire can arise. If there is no light, desire is not going to arise. Therefore, this desire arises because there is the cause, which is flower, but it must be also light, a condition there for the desire to arise. All right, now we have unconditioned here. But we have another condition also. Let's see, this flower is red. If this red flower stands in front of a red wall, behind it is a red wall. So you can't see the difference between red flower and red wall. There is no contrast of colors. Therefore, we can't even distinguish it between the wall and the flower. So one condition, therefore, it is contrast of colors. If the wall is white, for example, and you can see the flower is it is red, then yes, desire will arise because you can see it, the contrast of colors. Then you can distinguish. Therefore, contrast of colors is another condition. Light is there, but contrast of colors must be there also there. That is desire. So that is another condition. So, and this flower should be not far, not very, in order for us to see it. Distance is also another condition. So therefore, if we count so many conditions, then you can find many, many other things. And this flower should be a certain shape, maybe symmetrical shape, in order for us to be attractive. If the shape it is not well done and so forth, not in a good shape, so then of course we don't get attractive. So now we have found some conditions. Another condition are internal conditions. All right. Now we must have an eye for the desire to arise. If you don't have an eye, if you don't see the flower, if for example our eyes are shut, desire is not going to arise because we don't know the existence of the flowers. So, and then the eye must be intact, means healthy. If this is sick, as some sickness or so forth, we are not able to see it. So that is the internal condition. But there are other conditions also. Now, as soon as we see the flower, so there is some pleasant feeling which arises, which is called this feeling conditions also desire. If the feeling is unpleasant, we get some unpleasant feeling by looking to the flower. Desire is not going to arouse because we think it's unpleasant. So desire is not going to come. So, and then perception is also that this is pleasant. Perception should be established in oneself. Then that is also a strong factor, a strong condition for desire to arise. If perception is weak and tells us maybe not pleasant or unpleasant, desire is not strong to come up. So therefore, I'm telling you, there is a chain of conditions here. Okay, we have the cause, but there are conditions. Here it is a mechanism. All right? So like buttons, certain buttons has to be pushed like that for this desire to arise. It's like a machine. All right? Okay, the flower is attractive, but the color must be there, contrast, okay, the color is there, the light is there, contrast of colors must be there, our eye must be there, as called feeling must be there, perception must be there. Therefore, there is a kind of certain buttons which has to be pushed, then desire arises. So therefore, this desire, we call it conditioned phenomenon. It arises because of conditions. It's not me. There are certain conditions which make this desire to come up. Therefore, we can observe this mechanism, how this happens. And this mechanism does not happen now. If we observe this mechanism again and again, how every day this happens, one can see that this mechanism does not come only now in this present life. Slowly, slowly, one can go up to the womb and see this mechanism existed during the womb time. And then what happens before the womb time? One can go and see also past lives. Because that is how there is a series of mechanisms which happen. Because by seeing this cause and condition, one can see back, how back this goes. One can go back to past lives also. That mechanism comes from past lives. That is how advanced meditators can see this mechanism did not exist only now, existed from previous life. It comes from previous lives. So then this is how they can go to previous life. So this is, I'm just telling you in a very gross way, how this, some meditators can see also past life and also see future lives, because this mechanism is not going to stop for the future. This can lead also to future lives. So as it happens now, it can continue from future lives. So they can go and see how in the future lives, but they can see something else also, how to stop this mechanism. Because that is the liberating thing, is you don't see only the mechanism, but there is a way how to stop this mechanism, not to suffer, as called because of the mechanism of going from life to life. So, and that is a liberating knowledge, which by practicing this meditation, Vipassana meditation, the Buddha used it and he was liberated from samsara. So therefore now, therefore he told this is the direct path to Nibbana or to liberation from this samsara. Okay, now the next question is from Diego. If I observe the rise of a body sensation as heat and immediately arise the unpleasant feeling of pain, should I change the observation to the arising, staying, fall of the feeling, or stay with the first one, the heat body sensation? In other words, should I observe the whole process of rise, stay, fall entirely and don't change even if another become more prominent? So you can actually, now the object may change. Maybe you first perceive this body sensation as heat. Okay, you can name it like that. You name it heat. Never mind. If you like to name it like that, you can name it heat the way you understand it. So, and then you observe the rise and stay and fall of it. But after, if the sensation becomes a pain, you feel it as a pain, you can name it as pain. 2-3 times, you can name it pain, 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 or painful feeling, and then go and observe again the rise, staying, fall. So therefore now, you name an object the way you understand it. So, but I can just, now I gave you just a model. All right, got this feeling, there are pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings. These unpleasant feelings, they can take different modes. Now, for example, some they feel the itching sensation. Some they feeling a numbness in the legs or in the body. Some they feel feelings like stabbing knife in the body. Some like a strong stone hitting the body. I'm telling you, you can name them many times, many names, or like heat. So these are all sensations. If you understand this heat and so forth in the body, something unpleasant, we usually call it unpleasant sensation. Instead of using many words, we try to be laconic. Laconic means very brief, and use the same word for everything, which applies in a universal level. Therefore, we don't try to use the words, use many words, otherwise we get lost in words. So therefore now the Buddha at least gives 3 prominent feelings which arouse in our body: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings. So in that, under the category unpleasant feelings, you can name the feelings in different ways. So maybe itching, numbness, and there is no end in names. Or very heaty, cool, and everything so forth. If you understand this unpleasant, you just call it unpleasant 2-3 times. So to make it simple, not to make it very dramatic. We don't make these things dramatic. Unpleasant feeling or painful feeling you like. So, but you have to call it feeling, because you know the area you're observing is the feeling. So, and then 2-3 times you tell it like that, name it, and then observe the Vipassana part, which is rise, staying, and fall. Therefore, you can change the name, but I'm telling you, it is just to be more brief and not use many words. I just tell you just to call it unpleasant feeling. So lower states, but we have personalities. Of course we have personalities, we have. So everybody, different personality, everybody has a different personality. When we are small children, we may be different personality. After we've been teenagers, different personality. Now, different personality. Our personality also changes. This is fact. So just observe this idea of personality and see that this also changes. It's nothing permanent inside us. Tomorrow we might have different personality. If we grow older, and so forth, we might forget about the past personalities we had. We have only the present personality, because all people, they forget many things. If you ask him, they can't remember. So therefore, our personality is based on memories. So what we have achieved in life, what we did not achieve in life, and we're counting. Actually, we take a measuring tape, and we're counting. How inches is my personality? How many meters? 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters? We try to count our personalities from moment to moment. So, but it is just perception about the personality. We have actually what a bundle of many memories. This is what makes us remember about personalities. We build this personality. This is kind of idea we built about us, but now you might not have the experience it's called to understand this, but try and see what's called how this idea of personality arises in us. Investigate and see. Helena asked the question, will you teach us also the advanced meditation technique? Will we go further on? So then, yes, if I see some meditators, they can actually progress smoothly. So then they can go further and also observe more things. But the basic technique is this. The basic technique does not change. So to see, even if we see, for example, the cause and conditions, what the mechanism, it is the same technique to see that even these cause and conditions are not permanent. There is nobody there. They just arise because of other conditions. And these conditions produce other conditions. It's like a chain reaction. So therefore now, although we might know the conditions, the cause and condition, we understand that these things do not happen accidentally. So that is, we understand the conditionality of these things. But at the same time, we understand this conditionality also is not permanent, because cause and condition change all the time. So anyway, now, if I see somebody is somehow some advanced, so in this practice of what, don't worry, I will try to help to advance more.
I think, Bante, we ran out of questions. So
so you can ask a question. You can ask. Okay. All right, now this, whenever you have time, so you can practice. Many people, at least because of this lockdown, have plenty of time at home. They are wondering what to do. So that is one way how to observe this phenomena in your mind and our body and so forth. It will give you also self-knowledge, because we can see many things which happen in us, by this analysis, by analyzing the thoughts. Now, this is kind of analysis what we do. We want to analyze the thoughts, to see them, what actually happens in us. And the Buddha gives a model how to do so. So then the feelings, we analyze our feelings. So, and slowly we come to know what happens within us. So that is also self-knowledge, and it helps also to deal with everyday responsibilities we have, everyday activities we have. So therefore now it is a good chance for you to have this self-knowledge and to see what actually happened, to see some reality about ourselves. So therefore now, whenever you have time, you can practice this. We are going to conduct the same class next Friday, Vipassana. So usually Thursdays, we're conducting Samatha meditation, and Fridays, Vipassana meditation. So if you're going to join, you are welcome.
Excuse me, Bante, may I make you one more question?
Yes, please.
It's on the concept of letting go. In this Vipassana meditation, you taught us about seeing something arise, stay, and fall. And then in the concept of the breath, you talk about the breath in for the arising and the breath out for the falling. But then you also say that the breath in can be divided into a rise and a fall itself, yes? So in this way, we can break down every unit into a smaller unit, yes?
Yeah.
And so when we let go, the fall can be broken down in many smaller units as well. And I have to say that sometimes when it comes to emotion, I struggle to let go because this fall gets separated in so many more little units which have a rise and a fall. So I don't know if this question was well asked, but sometimes when letting go, the fall doesn't really take an end.
Sometimes, can you tell again, please?
Sometimes when letting go of an emotion, the fall of it doesn't really take an end.
The thought of it.
The fall
of it does not have an end.
Yes.
So now this term letting go, so has to come by maturity. It does not come by itself. So in order to this maturity to come, so we have to see the impermanence of these things. If you see that the object all the time changes, it comes and goes, slowly you lose interest of it. You think you can't grasp it because you can't keep it, like trying to take water with grasp water your hand, and ultimately the drops fall, they go by itself. So it is ultimately you feel it's futile effort to try to keep something which goes away. And then you lose interest, then ultimately the let go comes naturally by itself. You don't need to force yourself. It is not an intellectual practice you should do. It is an observation itself which you see the object, the real nature of the object, then you lose interest and the let go comes by itself, by seeing the impermanence of it. So therefore now we don't try to force things to understand. Try to observe. So we don't try to understand things. Try to observe is how things happen, and this understanding will come by itself. So therefore now the Buddha insists in this just to see this rise and fall, not to speculate. Because observation, direct observation is very important. Like a scientist, I gave you the example, he does not try to interpret a phenomenon before observing it. He has to observe it again, to see the nature of it. Slowly, he writes this data down, day by day, and it might sometimes months to understand phenomenon. So in the same way now with us, we try to see these things again, understand them. We try to force something upon them, an interpretation, a meaning upon them, which we have not seen. Even this meaning also can be impermanent. So therefore now we try to see this. Now this emotion, sometimes you are right, and sometimes they don't go, because we nourish these emotions for a long time. So they've grown in us. Sometimes they're taking roots in us. So, and then don't go immediately. So then if there are some strong emotions, the Buddha also gives another method with samatha meditation, how to break them down into pieces. Then only observe the impermanent nature of them. Because they are very gross, so they come again, and it's difficult to see their rise and fall because they persist. They ask, they last so long, and then gets tired. So and thinks, when is going to stop? There is no stop yet. So there is no end. So therefore now in every Thursday, like yesterday, for example, we taught also metta meditation, and I explained, especially with negative emotions, how I can reduce them. So by this metta meditation, even with this meditation, the way the Buddha teaches, we don't try to push away, to fight this emotion. No. We just try to withdraw our mind by wishing, may I be without this emotion. Now, for example, if anger arises, hate arises, or stress arises, or fear arises, or jealousy arises, any emotion, one can call it, one understands it's negative oneself. One can use one's own words. So one can call it in one's own language. Also, in the way one understands it, in every language, there are many synonyms for the same thing. So anyone can choose one word which is very makes it is more sensible for oneself towards this emotion. One should name this emotion the way it is, and then wish oneself, may I be without this emotion. Let's say anger, hate, hatred, or something, just examples. So then by doing so, one keeps all the attention towards oneself, because one has to have an object to relate this emotion with oneself, because this is existing. This is something existing emotion, not like we don't try to fantasize something. If it is present, yes, we wish, may I be without this, free of this emotion, or without this emotion. By not, the more we withdraw, by not giving fuel, this emotion, having no more fuel, it goes off. It disappears. So we're wondering, what happened? So if it comes again, we have to continue. It comes and goes, comes and goes. Therefore now, these strong emotions, slowly, they start becoming more dispersed. They become less. After one can practice Vipassana and see the nature of them. That is also another way how one can intensify the practice and see the impermanent nature of them. So with samatha, we try to break into pieces, means to allow it to, not to identify as called, to withdraw our mind from it. And then when we see this breaking into pieces and so forth, then we try to see how it rises and falls and so forth, intensify the practice. So therefore now this is called a combination of samatha and vipassana, it's called. So in conjunction with it, samatha, vipassana in conjunction.
Grazie, Bhante.
So therefore now you can do this. I don't know whether you have followed the lesson yesterday about metta meditation. So if such emotions, which we call it especially negative, unpleasant emotions come in the mind, you just can concentrate, take all your attention to your body, because if the sensation of emotion come, they affect the whole nervous system. So, and then, for example, if we are in stress, we know sometimes our hands shake, we are uneasy, anxiety builds up. No, the whole body, the whole nervous system, it is in turbulence. So therefore now we throw all our attention to our body, means take ourselves as an object and wish, may I be without this emotion. So if memories come that the episode happened, which we remember this emotion arose, and we got affected by this emotion because we had argument with somebody or some, let's say, example. So we take again ourselves as an object and then wish ourselves may I be without this emotion. It can be anger, it can be hate, it can be jealousy, it can be fear, it can be stress, whatever, and so on. So, and then we can see that this emotion slowly, by not having any more fuel, it goes. So either in the past moments we remember something, or in the present moment. So we take ourselves as a center of attention and wish may I be free from this. So that is one way to get rid of this emotion, not with a violent way. No. It is just to withdraw our mind from it, not giving the fuel, the food, not feeding them. So not get entangled in them, not get be dragged along with them.
So in some meditative practices, we will use compensation. So if I feel hatred, I will try to feel compassion, yes. Let's say counteract the emotion. And if that's something I practice with people, it's quite simple. If I see something bad in a person, I try to see something good in them, and I'll feel more neutral about the person. But when it comes to something deeper, you would recommend to simply express the wish and feel the wish of being free of that emotion.
Yes, because now we have to recognize what is the problem. Okay, let's see if hate is there. We don't try to avoid seeing it. That's like turning a blind eye to a thing which already exists in us.
I understand.
Or something else which doesn't exist, but try to create it. So like compassion. Okay, so in this meditation, what the Buddha teaches is this hate in us. We try to concentrate on that emotion, to understand, okay, and be aware of this. Then wish, may I be free from this. I can't develop compassion if I have still emotion of hate with this enemy.
I understand.
So therefore now, what is to talk about compassion while I'm boiling with hate inside? So it is impossible. That is like trying to avoid trying to turn a blind eye to existing thing and try to turn an eye which is not existing in compassion.
Thank you, Bante.
Bante, I think James asked twice one question. Maybe that will be the last one.
Or in chat room? In the
yes.
chat room?
Yes.
So, let me see. Okay.
James Parker.
Yes, that is the most interesting questions which many people ask about the ego and the self. Let me see, how do you know it is not ego, self? Games of striving. Games? Self-games of striving.
Hello. What else?
You're trying to say.
Hello there.
Hello.
I suppose my point is that one of my struggles is the central premise of obviously Buddhism is no self. But obviously, when I'm meditating, I'm coming from a self position, self. So one of the things I've always found as a struggle is how do you observe without getting the self, how do you get this awareness that is not necessarily the self? Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand you. So, but this knowledge does not come like that. So we have to understand that what is this, what we call self? Okay, so now if we observe maybe the other thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, usually something within the range of our experience, it is what we call self. And everybody is different. Maybe his perceptions, his ideas, my idea, what philosophical ideas, religious ideas, maybe some silly ideas, whatever and so on, what we call self. Everybody's different aspect, it's called different idea, what he calls ego or self. But it is something within our experience. Now we take down these experience things, what things we experience, and check them, analyze them and see. So what is the nature of this phenomenon? This is what the Buddha tells. He never speaks now this Satipatthana Sutta, which I mentioned, this 4 application of mindfulness. He never mentioned about anatta, not self, not about anicca. These words do not occur at all. He tells you just observe. Observe the nature of this phenomenon. As called, this is direct observation, this direct knowledge, empirical knowledge to see. We don't try to change anything. Later, of course, you may understand. You might come to the conclusion because these things change. What I call I, maybe my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, I never tell these emotions to come. I never tell them to go. They come and go. How much control I have over this emotion and our thoughts. Then you understand that what I'm calling myself is actually fallacy. It's idea which I put on this phenomena, which all the time change. But I have the perception that these phenomena do not change. By observing them again and again, one sees there is nothing lasting there in us, which we can call self. This knowledge has to come naturally. It has no, you can't force this knowledge upon us with intellectual manner. That's why the Buddha never mentions in the sutta and so forth, anatta. Look how anatta is, how anicca is. No, this anatta means not self. Anicca is impermanent. He never mentioned these words. So to see just the nature of these things, what is the nature of that? Direct observation is to see the rise and fall of them. And this can be verified. You can verify that. That there is no self, you can't verify that. Okay? You can't verify that. You can't ask yourself, I am, I'm not. What is the answer you're getting? Surely some answer will come that I am, yes, I'm this, I'm that. So, but can you verify that? You can't. So therefore, verification will come by observation, direct observation. That's why I mentioned this is what scientists do. Okay.
The reason I say this because it played on my mind. Well, it didn't play on my mind. I was meditating on the beach, and this guy walked past. I assume he was some kind of guy who meditated a lot himself. And he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm observing my thinking. I'm observing my feelings, my thinking." And he said, "Well, who is the observer?" And I said, "I am." And then he kind of said, "Well, that's the self, isn't it?" And then since then, I've always been, well, yeah, that's a point. I've never been able to answer that question. Who is the observer? Who is that which is observing all this? Is it me as a...
Yes, now observer is actually, again, a bundle of many factors. Okay, how we observe things. There is a mechanism in the mind. So now, if we want to know an object, what we observe, there must be some attention there. If we don't have attention to see the object, we are not going to observe it. Attention is one factor. Memory is one. You must remember what you observe. If we forget, we're not going to observe it. Okay? What could call mindfulness. So who is mindfulness? Who is attention? All right, up to now that is different. But there is another factor also. So for example, perception. If we can't perceive the object, what we observe, you are not going to know what the object is. So another is feeling. We must have a certain feeling towards that object, what is pleasant and unpleasant, in order to observe it. So if we actually accumulate all these, we call them mental factors. Okay? What the Buddha is, in the suttas, he speaks about cetasikas. Cetasikas, I don't know whether we heard them. They are mental factors. The combination of mental factors which have to be combined in a certain way for us to observe something. If we analyze in the final analysis, there is nobody there. It's just a combination of mental factors. As called. Therefore now, and there is chetana, intention must be also there. intention to observe the object. If there is no intention, you are going to observe it. Who is the intention? Intention again has to be supported for other mental factors. So therefore now here we can see there is a kind of combination of consciousness and mental factors together. It is a group of mental phenomena which have to be put together like a puzzle. So puzzle pieces, and then we have the picture of the phenomena we observe. Therefore now here it is not one thing, there are many things together. Who of these all things are me? Attention, or it's called, or this. In this attention, so for all the time changes. Our perception changes. So what we try to do here, we try to identify with an object, or it's called with a person. Therefore, like scientists, they never ask who makes the clouds, who makes the thunder. Okay, they never ask. They ask what makes the thunder. If we see the clouds and you see thunder, formerly people, naive people, they will think that this thunder to be made like that. So this lighting which come like fire in the sky, to be made like that, might be somebody who can do that. And they build gods, they got mythologies. I don't know from what country you are, but I think you have also mythology in your country. So if you read the mythology there, people look how they interpret this phenomena. Who make the thunder? There must be a god of thunder, of lighting. There must be a god of agriculture, of plants and so forth. You have the mythology. So therefore, no, people that personify mental phenomena, natural phenomena. The same way, some people, many people personify mental phenomena. But here comes the scientist and tells you, no, there is nobody there in the thunder. There is nobody there in the lighting. They are just plain natural phenomena. And he gives explanation why this happened in natural way. So therefore now, this God is no more there. So there's somebody is not there. It is something. But this something is not somebody. It's not a person. Just natural phenomena. So in the same way, if we observe this phenomena as within us, we try to personify them. But if we analyze them in a scientific way like that, just mental processes, there is not a person there. But what happens, because this mental process, it is we see in a compact way. Compact means like in a gross way. We don't analyze it. So we think it is something, a solid thing. An example I will give you, a very gross example. Now, if we see a river from afar, we think it is not moving at all. Okay? It is like a rock which stays there forever. Every day we look at it, it is the same. It never changes. A river never changes. If we see it from afar, it looks all the same. It's like a rock which does not move. But if we go closer, then you can see, no, that is a fallacy. It's not. This river, it is just a flow of water all the time changing. It's nothing there static. Nothing static is there. So then the closer we go, the more we can verify this fact. This perception of compactness is no more there. It gets lost. Now you can see this is just a liquid thing which flows. The more you go, you can see that every drop of this water is changing. Not a single drop of this water is the same. It's changing. So if we put our hand in our hand, we can't grasp this water. It flows from our hand. It's liquid. So it's changing. The same way now with Vipassana, we do the same. If we see our mental phenomena from afar, they look compact. They look solid. There is one thing is there. And we personify them. This is me. This is myself. I'm solid. I'm permanent. I'm not going to change. Because look, yesterday I looked this phenomena, they look the same. Today I look, they are the same. Like a river from afar. But if we deepen out, goes close, zoom in, we go zoom in, more, then you get shocked. No, this thing changed. There is nothing there. This is fallacy we had. So that is why you try to lose this kind of fallacy, this lose of perception that is something permanent in us. There is an observer there. No, this is a combination of many things. So we only try to put labels on this phenomenon. That is the effort we do. You get disappointed because this observer is also changing. What this observer is about. Today we observe this phenomenon. If we try to observe it tomorrow, we can't. It's difficult. So therefore, what means? Who is this observer? It is a combination of many, many factors. We'll call mental factors. So which are combined in a certain shape, then give us this kind of experience of an object is like that or like that. And then we have a certain understanding, which this understanding may change tomorrow. So our understanding of this object, what we observe now, may be changed tomorrow. So therefore, our observation also may also change. The object may also change. Therefore, now, if we zoom in the ultimate reality, in the Buddhism, we have two realities. Conventional reality, okay? The way we talk, I sit, I think, I feel, I. But in the ultimate reality, that is a fallacy. Because it is, we see things in a very compact way. Like a river, we see it from very far. It looks one body, one thing, never changes. So, but if we zoom in this mental phenomena, we can see that this, what is called river in us, it is not one thing, it's nothing compact, it's flowing. That's why the Buddha speaks about Vijnana Sota, the stream of consciousness. It's a stream. We are a stream of mental and material phenomena. And you can't sometimes separate mental and material phenomena. They have to depend on each other. Our mind depends on material phenomena. Our material phenomena depend on the mind. So therefore now, it's called now, our mind also know material phenomena, how it depends. Now, if we see colors, it is a material phenomenon. Our moods do not change because of colors. Colors do not influence our mind. Of course they influence, but we can also change our perception about colors and don't get influenced. So we have this ability also. So therefore now material phenomena can influence us. We also can influence material phenomena. So that is a kind of thing, a combination where actually a combination of mental and material phenomena, properties, which are combined, they give us a perception of compactness. And we think, I am this, I am that. But if this phenomena disintegrate, we lose our perception of I. Let's say I gave you the example with oxygen. As long as we breathe oxygen, we feel I'm this, I'm that, we spoke, we can boast about ourselves and tell big stories to others and so forth. I am this, I achieved this in life and others. But one moment, the oxygen is no more there. We die. Just bubbles of talk. So without understanding who we are conditioned. That is the answer. We are conditioned, we depend on many conditions. As long the conditions are there, we are. If conditions are not there, we are not. So it is difficult to understand, but it needs practice. It needs practice to zoom in and see how this phenomena work. But we have to do it in an impartial way, in a very objective way. If we try to put a very subjective and personify these things, like old people personified the clouds and personified the thunder and lightning, so we're never going to understand. We built a mythology, our mythology about ourselves. It's a myths about ourselves. So in order to get rid of this mythology, of these myths, so what observation is a step. This is what scientists did. This is scientific method like that. If you can call it scientific, but it is a method, systematic method. So without observation, scientists will never discover what they've discovered. So therefore now, even if we today we speak here, if you go a farmer in your village, so if there's a village around, go to the farmer and tell them that the sun never rises, never sets, and so forth. Because scientists told that it is opposite, that actually the earth turns around. He will chase you. He will take some, he will chase you until this can't be. Because he sees every day the sun rising and setting, how the sun goes up and down. He can't believe it. It's impossible for him to believe it because he can't see this. His senses tells him that the sun rises, as called, and sets. So, but how did scientists discover it? As called that the sun never rises, never sets. It is through months and months of observation. So something similar we try to do to understand that the reality is completely the opposite of why we understand it. And it needs work, observation to understand this. It's not for naive people. It's not for naive people. Naive people, they can easily believe whatever they like.
Yeah, that's very profound. Thank you. The observer, I think particularly the Western mind, maybe, we're so compact, aren't we, as egos, as individuals, as in society, and so when we meditate, I assume that's the challenge, isn't it? The challenge is that when we sit down, we don't sit down as observing conditional reality. We sit down as Bob or Jeff or Louise or and we, who is the, dentist or whoever it may be, and that identity is so structured, so that is what I would say I use as my observer, but that's not the observer, is it? That's a conditionality.
Yes, conditionality, sir. So, but even if we meditate, we have to actually apply a certain method to give an emphasis to something, which is there. Most people give emphasis to things in order to intensify the perception of identity. So the permanency is something. And many gurus and so forth, they will tell you can achieve this, something permanent, something eternal. So then some eternal bliss, eternal love, they will give all these promises. This is how people run to achieve this. But as the Buddha has understood in his time and so forth, there are many philosophers, many meditators when the Buddha was living. So he understood actually that by his own experience, because of Vipassana practice, so that is nothing lasting. This is just a fallacy. But here, that's why he gave emphasis to observe this rise and fall again and again. If one doesn't keep emphasis on that, just awareness itself is not going to help. Even today, this mindfulness meditation which is taught, they will tell you just be aware of this, be aware of that. If it is there, you just be aware of that. But they don't tell you to see the second step, the nature of that, to see the rise and fall. So at least I know a few teachers who give emphasis on that because they follow the Buddha's advice. So most of the teachers, they don't give the emphasis on that. Just tell you observe, and so forth, but they don't give you to see the rise and fall. So if you miss that, of course, then you come to different conclusions.
Yeah, that seems really spot on, really helpful. I suppose what it is I want to find is this, because what you actually said is you cannot know the observer is, it's unknowable, I suppose. It's so
no, you can know, of course, by analysis you can know. That is actually a combination of many mental factors. So one develops these certain mental factors, they increase, and so forth, then they give these results. You can see an object. Like I gave you the example with how desire arises in us. It is a combination of many things. So these things do not exist actually in a vacuum like that. Now, I will give another example. So now you don't have fire in front of you, all right? You have a fire.
No.
It's not existent. Fire is not existent. But if you take two sticks, dry stick, it must be dry sticks, okay? That's your condition. And try to rub them again, together again. Try to rub them again. After some time, you can see that smoke comes. Okay, if you continue rubbing, then you can see fire comes, some splinters of fire comes. So then Now, this fire, where it was called stored, where it was stored? Inside the wood. So if you take the wood and cut into pieces, you can't find fire. But this has been produced. So how? Because you put the conditions there. So right, okay. Now this fire arose because conditions are there. But as soon as you stop rubbing the sticks, okay, the fire also disappears. This fire is conditionally arisen. The same one now, this observation in us, it is conditionally arisen. It's not stored anywhere. We try to combine certain things together, okay? And ultimately, pop, the observation comes. It is a combination of many things. So there are many ingredients. There may be some ingredients, if you tell it, chemical ingredients in our mind, if you tell like that, they combine together, pop, they give us, okay, the idea I am observing. But it's not. We identify with this phenomenon. So it is like if now people who know physics and chemistry, it's very easy to understand this phenomenon. They have no problem. So because they see things objectively. Now, especially neuroscientists, who see these things in a very scientific way, in a very objective way, they understand this phenomenon very easy. So even astrophysics, for example, who have studied the whole many chemistry and all the universe, they never insist that we have a self like that, like cosmic dust like that. They will tell you. Okay, so they tell the symbol. Of course, we don't tell only what consists of cosmic dust, combination of cosmic dust. We have another energy called consciousness, which is not a cosmic dust. It is an immaterial phenomenon. That is, this consciousness is which makes a big game with us, deceives us. It deceives us. So if we understand this consciousness, how it combines with different elements, which are mental factors, then understand that it is actually a combination of things. We see them as something compact and try to identify with them, but in the ultimate analysis, so it's just a mental phenomenon. It's nothing there. It is just, which is all the time change. They all the change. It's just a flux. They are in flux. So we don't speak about a static universe anymore. We don't speak about a static mind anymore. So if we practice Vipassana.
Right. So when it comes to consciousness, what do you say that is? That's everything, right? Consciousness. You mean consciousness is in the brain, or you're saying consciousness is everything?
So now in this universe, now according to Buddhism, there are two energies. Okay. One is material energy, and we have the mental energy. So, and consciousness is a kind of energy, right?
What, sorry?
Energy is a kind of energy, but wow. It's a mental energy. So it has a different ability from material energy. So now material energy can't cognize objects. Now if you hit the wall with your finger, the wall is never telling you, oh, it's painful. But you can feel the pain in your finger. All right? So the wall is never going to complain. You are going to complain, oh, so painful because I hit the wall. So why you feel the pain? Because you have consciousness. And this consciousness is all over the body, can appear all the body. It's not installed like that. Can appear if conditions are there. So they can appear in the body. This is called body consciousness. But we have also eye consciousness. Now, if we see objects with the eye consciousness arises, to be conscious of visual objects. Now, we have ear consciousness, to be conscious of sounds. Now, ear consciousness can't cognize object, can't see object, but it can hear sounds. And eye consciousness can't cognize sounds, can see visual objects. The same way, nose consciousness, who can cognize smells. and tongue consciousness, so which can recognize tests. So therefore, no, this consciousness is a kind of complex thing. It's a complex energy. So, and this energy will appear in certain parts of our body where there is some stimuli. There must be some stimuli for this consciousness area arise. It does not arise by itself. Like fire, for example, as I told you, it will arise if there is some rubbing thing. It gets rubbed, some two sticks have to rub together, and then pop, the fire will come. The same way with this consciousness, there must be some stimuli, some rubbing, as to be rubbed something. Then it arises. It's not stored anywhere. It's an energy which arises because there are certain ingredients there. So then it appears and has the ability to know an object, to be conscious of an object, which material properties do not have this ability. So, and now we have also mind consciousness. So mind consciousness, which now we don't get stimuli from outside, but from inside. Now we get some idea from inside. So if we close our eyes, we don't have any sound from outside, no smell, no taste. If we sit like that, we can see what happens inside us. All right, that is mind consciousness. We're aware of this. There is stimuli, internal stimuli, ideas, sounds, smells we have tested before. They might come like memories. This memory itself, it is stimulate the consciousness, the mind consciousness to arise. Therefore, mind consciousness is all the time busy. Even if we don't know, it is busy, doing its own work. It's like electricity, like for example, and you can use it in different ways. And you use this kind of energy, mental energy, in a different way. Now, if we talk, you use this energy now, okay? A dead body, for example, is like a wood, dead wood. It can't talk, it can't move, because it's no more consciousness there. Consciousness is gone. But we have consciousness. That's where you can talk, we can move our hands, you can move our legs, and so forth, because of this mental energy which is produced because of consciousness. So therefore now, and if consciousness goes away from our body, then the body falls down like a wooden block. It does not move. So therefore now this is a mental energy. Now, but this mental energy, the thing is that it can survive death. Okay? That's why in Buddhism we speak about rebirth. And this matter of rebirth has been investigated nowadays by scientists, like psychiatrists, especially high psychiatrists, who have found many children who can remember the past lives. And that is a big evidence which is built up. And they verified this by fact, really by, it's called very, very documented facts. And today there is built up so much evidence, so many even scientists, serious scientists, even astrophysics who have doubt about these things, they have admitted that this has to be taken seriously because the documents speak by themselves so loudly. So therefore now rebirth is one aspect which has been investigated, and that's why you can understand this mental energy does not stop functioning after the death of the body. It goes from life to life. So, and the Buddha explains how it goes. The whole mechanism of rebirth, he has explained it. So how this mental energy works. So therefore now that is a different aspect of our mind. But if we understand this energy again is conditioned, it's nothing being like that. We call it in bit. In ultimate reality, so it's just an energy. So like material energy, we call it, now people, naive people, of course, they will call naive energy, it comes from God and so forth. They personified it. So, and also mental energy, many people, they personified it. But it's nothing personal there. It just causing conditions which all the time like processes which happen and so forth from moment to moment, like a river, like a flow, just like a stream, which like runs from moment to moment. So only we try to identify it because we look it from afar, it looks to us something compact. But if you go zoom in, you can see there's nothing permanent in that. Everything is in flux. So therefore, we can't point the time we want to put our finger, this is me, next time is gone. This consciousness has gone. A different consciousness arises. So it is not the same anytime. It's not the same. Even if the person who goes from life to life, it's not the same consciousness. It's like exchange of information. It's data. I call exchange of data who come from life to life, go from life to life. Information like that. So anyway, now I give you just a gross idea how these things happened, and that's why the Buddha insists now to about Anupassana. Anupassana is observation. This word Anupassana comes again and again in the Satipatthana Sutta and insists again and again to do Anupassana. But to do this Anupassana, this observation, what mindfulness. If we are forgetful, we are not going to observe. So, and to be ardent means not to be lethargic. One has to arouse interest on doing it. So, and then only was able to observe this.
So there's no separation between the observation, which is, say, whether it's mental feelings or senses, whatever it may be. So there's no separation between the observer and that which the observer and the observed. Is that right? So there's no...
Of course, there is separation. But I mean now, this observer, it is actually a combination of mental factors. The observed is an object. Let's say a flower. All right? We observe the flower. The flower is not the observer. It is object. The observer is actually the combination of consciousness with mental factors. So if we see it in a compact way, we think it is one thing, but it's not one thing. It's called, if we analyze them, it's not many things. So if we pinpoint what is then I? Am I the attention, the mindfulness, the consciousness, this and so forth. So, but then if we observe this attention and so forth, it changes. It's not the same. Mindfulness, it changes. It's not the same. Consciousness, it changes. It's not the same. Then we get shocked. Moment, I think. Moment. What I'm calling I. This thing change. The time I try to pinpoint this I am is already gone. So that is a fallacy what we do. And then you understand, okay, that is a fallacy. You have to understand it. What we call I, it is just a fallacy what we do. It's just a combination of many things together which are not static. They just change. So if they change, what is for me to tell I'm this, I'm that? That means the time my feeling, I'm telling my feeling is me, and you can see the feeling has already gone. Therefore, I have already gone. My ego has already gone. So we're testing actually to catch something which is all the time changing. If you only see these things from afar, so they look one thing. But if we zoom in, then you can see that is wrong perception we get. So we just try to observe. That's why the Buddha says, observe these things. See it again and again. And Anupassana means, Pasana means to see. Anu, to see again and again. To see Anu, again and again and again. What we call it, observation. Actually, observation does that. Because we have seen once, that means we have observed it. No, we have seen it. But we did not observe it. And observation, all in English, means we have to see this thing again, again to understand it. But to see it in a special way. That's why it's called Vipassana. We have Anupassana and Vipassana. To observe it, but in a Vipassana, a very specialized way. And that is, he emphasizes, what is a special way to see it? To see this rise and fall.
Yeah, so you're saying there is a separation between the observer and the observed, but there's no control, is if because it's an infinite cause and effect process.
Yes.
I don't have a control. I'm not a controller. I can't control.
Not absolute controller. A relative controller, yes. We have only relative control about these things. Not absolute. They can slip from your hand anytime. Like water, it can slip from my hand. The more you try to grasp the water, tight our fist, the more the water flows over hands. It goes off. So
yeah, but then you can say, who is the controller? Because
yes, now we use this word, this is conventional way. We use the conventional language. That's why you get confused by using the conventional language. But if we see it completely objectively, without using this language, the ordinary language we use every day, then of course you can see these things in a more clear way. So language is not going to be as called an obstacle for us to understand this.
I see.
Bante, it's 20 to 12 in Greece. Tomorrow we have another lesson, Abhidhamma. So I think we should conclude here. And James, next week, if you have some more questions, you are most welcome. Welcome to.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, then. So we wish you good night for everybody. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night. Safe.
Thank you.
Nem tudom, hogy délután találkozunk a lányokkal, vagy este.